Hey there, I'm Jack Skeels, CEO of AgencyAgile. Welcome to this short form version of one of my favorite presentations, which we call the NOCO presentation, the Naturally Occurring Chaotic Organization. It can be found in a webinar called Why Agencies Become Crazy Places to Work on our website, agencyagile.com. But I'm going to take you through some of the key slides inside of that. You're probably watching this because you're working with us to maybe start working on a program or already in a transformation program with AgencyAgile. It explains the fundamental challenge of agencies and why, in fact, they're so different than most organizations, and also, to a degree, why some traditional management techniques don't work. I don't go into a lot of detail in this one about that, but if you watch the more full version on our website, you'll get even discussion about project management, account management, all that kind of thing. So anyways, let me get going. I'll bring up the presentation and where do we go? Of course, it's not on the front slide. So sorry for the slight craziness there. So it is part, like I said, of a webinar called Why Agencies Become Crazy Places to Work that you can find out at agencyagile.com. Let's get rolling here. Key idea. Okay. Does growth make an agency better? Actually, growth doesn't make any organization better. Growth is almost always, after a certain point, a negative thing on organizations. But agencies, and I'll show you how that works towards the end of this, agencies generally get worse. If you're an agency of any size, you're getting worse as you're getting larger. This comes from an observation I had in 2014. We'd been around for 3 or 4 years at this point, and I noticed that talking to a lot of everyone wanted to talk to us. Well, it still does, but back then it was just crazy. Anyone would take an appointment, and I talked to them about their organization, and so you have a small organization with just one manager, like 13 people, and then a little bit bigger with some more managers, and so and these were representative numbers. The slide on the triangle on the upper right, 10 to 15 managers, but it's only 5 times larger than the one on the left. Said the other way around. Triangle on the upper right, total is 5 times larger than the one on the left, but it has 10 to 15 times as many managers. So the number of managers is growing faster than the natural growth of the organization. Kind of crazy? It's true in agencies. I've shown this slide to hundreds of agencies, and there are only a few rare exceptions, and those are really interesting. But the numbers keep on going up. They tend to plateau around 1 to 2. 1 manager for every 2 makers, if you know, kind of crazy numbers. We were able to pitch this to Ad Age, and I got a piece, and you can still find it online. I think I've got a copy of it on agencyagile.com as well. Why success is killing digital agencies. Real quick note about me, program, project, and technology program management. Started several companies, won the Inc. 500 award a couple times. There's one right there. And got my MBA. Also worked at RAND Corporation, think tank, probably for a total of 7 or 8 years. Though part of that was part-time as an agile researcher. And also as a professor, but I studied organization theory and actually buyer-seller relationships are a couple of things that I worked on, and later on organization design and chaos in organizations. I worked in the agency space running Sapiens Los Angeles office, etc., and most recently authored a book called Unmanaged, which you should buy and read. I don't make much off the sales, but you'll make a lot of improvement in your career by understanding what's inside the book. The NOCO stuff is inside there. It's sort of blended in with a bigger dialogue. But real quickly about AgencyAgile, we solve what we call the $1 million problem. This is the rework rate that plagues all kinds of agencies, usually 25% rework rate. If you can reduce that rework rate, you can slash it using our techniques and boost productive capacity, and everyone gets happier as well. Now, and you'll see these kind of numbers. These are the kind of numbers that our clients get. So this is why the NOCO thing I'm about to show you, was formed after we were succeeding at this. And I said, well, what in the heck are we solving? And I put my researcher hat on. I said, what are the drivers of these problems that we're fixing with these techniques? They're sort of derived from Agile, but we just customized rather than bastardized, right? Customized them tremendously since then. 220 agencies. I'm not going to spend time on these slides, but also highly effective training. So if you're in our trainings, just be ready for highly effective. It's coming your way. So here's what goes wrong at agencies. Those pyramids are driven actually by the fundamental business model, which is different than most business models. So this is what's called an ad hoc business model. There's some collection of clients that have ad hoc needs. In other words, each of those clients is actually asking for a different kind of thing. Do my spring launch campaign, I need some social media, et cetera, all that kind of thing. And you've got this team of flexible, very talented people. Yes, flexible, very talented people who will come together to solve one of those client needs, and then they'll separate apart. In fact, this sort of like ad hoc formation of teams to serve ad hoc requests is actually it's the reason they call it an adhocracy. More recently in the research and in my writing as well, we call it a project-driven organization, as in the organization of the organization, the structuring of the organization is driven by the nature of the projects it's being asked to do. Just sort of a fancier and simpler way, less pretentious way, maybe to talk about what the organization is. This model is highly complex. Think about it. This is a model that you'd use if you could walk into McDonald's and order whatever you wanted. I'd like a Tesla with some cheese on top, whatever, that kind of thing. You can build anything. These organizations are designed for that. So it's very chaotic and complex. And there are 5 main factors. One is how big you are and the type of work you do that affects that. Roles, the traditional organizational stuff, okay? And then how you manage 3 key factors. We're going to dig into these. One is how you manage understanding and alignment. The second is coordination and flow, productive flow, people getting stuff done. And third is empowerment and all the learning stuff that goes with it, adaptation, mentoring, et cetera. I spent a lot of time in the book on all 3 of these topics. So again, I'm not trying to sell the book, but if you want to dig into this and you like this, that's a great place to go. The difference between doing this well and doing this poorly can be up to 100% swing in performance. Now, that doesn't mean that we make people work, our stuff makes people work twice as fast. What it really means is that the chaotic environment suppresses productivity. And when you start relieving the factors, you can actually get a lot of released productivity. We've had 2 clients now out of 200. They said, is it real common? But usually there's a good amount of suppressed productivity you can release that actually doubled their productivity by de-suppressing a lot of that failure. Now, so there's this term NOCO, which I invented, naturally occurring chaotic organization. And that is to say, you're a chaotic organization. Yes, your agency is, but the chaos is naturally occurring. It's part of that intrinsic business model. You won't be an agency anymore. In fact, if you only have 1 client, right? Okay. And you won't be an agency anymore if you actually only do one thing. Agencies always do a lot of different things. So there's an intrinsically chaotic business model. Some people score themselves. I'm going to go through 9 factors, and you can score each on 1 to 10 scale, where 10 is way more true, way more chaotic, and 1 is low. I'll try to remember to come up with scores at the end, but basically if you come in about 50 or more, then absolutely we can make your organization better. Most agencies we do this with come in the 70s and 80s of a 90-point scale, right? So 3 types of no-code chaos. I mentioned these before: chaos of understanding, chaos of coordination, chaos of empowerment. The last one's a mule. I ran out of crazy horse pictures. Here we go. Challenge of understanding. There's something that drives fundamentally, and I talked about it before, it's that agencies do purpose-built work. In fact, agencies strive to do purpose-built work. In other words, if the client says, let's do the campaign from last holiday season, and the agency says, okay, but it's not that campaign. We're going to throw that out. We're going to start from scratch, different team of people, whole different ideas, channels, that kind of thing. And that's the cool stuff about agency. But what it really means is that we don't get the benefit of repeatability that we do in more traditional businesses. Absolute boost creativity and inspiration and the like, but it creates chaos in operations. One of the ways you can think of that is through this clever little diagram, how well we understand the project on the vertical axis and the life cycle of the project. And most projects in the world are actually quite well understood. Let's consider building a house. I've got the blueprint on the left hand of this black line, and I've got the house on the right hand. But my understanding of the house doesn't change a lot unless you have a bad contractor. But in general, the goal of the project is build what we have actually described and build it correctly, right? So the most projects have very low, high levels of understanding or very low levels of ignorance. But because of agencies' desire to do things innovative differently and do things that have never been done before, it means that the level of ignorance, and we use the ignorance, like maybe we ignored what we did last holiday season, or just plain ignorance, like we don't know what we're going to do, means a project has a path something like this. Eventually, you do know what it is when you're done. The challenge is that it's easy to plan a non-agency project because you know enough to actually make a plan. Agency projects will be very, very hard. That intrinsically there's an unknowability in there in multiple dimensions. The next thing is that you've got multidisciplinary, and remember, start scoring yourself how crazy you are in terms of how unique and purpose-built and how much you throw out the rules and all that kind of thing. Second one, multidisciplinary work product. And what this means is how much is your work interdependent? Increasingly, agencies now, when they're producing something, they're producing a suite of things for the client. We've got something going on in social, maybe out of home. We've got technology platforms, stuff we're doing, social, whatever, a bunch of different channels. So it's got a bunch of different solvers and a bunch of different ways of thinking about the solution. And so this means that actually gaining a rich understanding of it is a lot harder to do, especially what I'll call an aligned understanding. Talk about that in just a second. The third thing is, if you remember that diagram, the Venn diagram at the beginning, agencies have multiple clients, typically multiple industries and multiple buying points inside of your larger clients. So you're working with different parts of the business. Well, what this means, one, it's great because it gives you diversification. So it's a natural thing to do. But it also means that someone like a senior art director working on something is unlikely to have a good understanding of the client. And if you don't understand the why behind what's being asked, then you don't do as good a work, right? You can't innovate as well. And so in a way, the understanding gets more difficult the more clients we have and the more chaos and more interdisciplinary. And just to touch on these points, understanding and alignment. Understanding is how well any one individual understands the why and the what and what they need to do. But alignment is what great teams and where great creative and great innovation comes from, is when a team understands each other's understanding of the project. So we know how to work together, how to integrate our work and all that kind of thing. So if you can't get to the first one, you'll never get to the second one. And agencies, of course, struggle with both. All right, so that's the three challenges of understanding. We've got three challenges of coordination. One is a very obvious one with all those clients, all those projects. You have multiple projects going on at the same time. We have a client, talked to them the other day, 60 people, I think, something like that, and they have 150 active projects. Holy cow, 150 active projects, and they have like 45 clients, right? And got these crazy numbers, right? Think about it. It means there are multiple priorities, and that means everyone's multi-allocated. Working on multiple projects, multiple clients. But that means they have multiple managers. And here's a really insidious thing people don't realize, because they believe, in fact, managing more fixes chaos. But in fact, managing more creates chaos. It amplifies chaos. It amplifies the natural chaos. What we see is, as an agency gets larger and gains more clients, of course, the team grows, but then all of a sudden, boom, we've got a lot of managers. Remember those pyramids? We went from 3 managers to 15 managers, just like that, blink of an eye. And you'll probably remember that. If you look at your agency right now, you see we've got a ton of managers. The interesting thing is they're not all really, truly managers, no offense to any of them. The leads, the department leads on the right here, those are what we think is true vertical managers. They are the managers over the people with those same skills inside the organization, like the manager of the creative department. The other managers are what are called quasi-managers. They act as if they're managers, but they don't have formal authority, but they have pretty darn strong informal authority over team members and what's being done in the work. And so what that means is we get this over managing situation as everyone decides to weigh in on what they think people should do. And so this creates a lot of chaos and interrupted noise. And you can think of it this way, is that having multi-allocated people means that you've got maybe 10 of those managers, 5 or 10 of them at any given moment that can interrupt this one worker trying to get work done, right? This one maker. And this is the exact opposite idea of classic management and classic organizational theory. Classic organizational management is I have one manager, and that's the person who tells me what I should or shouldn't be working on and what the priorities are, all that kind of thing. In this situation, it's called a span of control. In this situation, we've got an inverted span of control. It's crazy. It literally is that those managers work out their priorities on the back of that worker right there. By the way, hardest job in the agency is to come in every day to try and get work done, saddle up, whatever, sign on, turn your computer on in your office like I do. Hardest job is to try and get work done when you've got that phalanx of managers there. They're all trying to compete for your time and your focus. It's a horrific situation, and it destroys productivity. And it creates fractionalized focus, making people bounce from work to work in ways that they wouldn't naturally do, which is what happens in those highly interruptive situations, drops productivity dramatically. In fact, I'm going to give you a stat. When we work with an agency, one of the things we always try to do, is figure out what the productive hours of the day are. And we do this by asking the makers. If you ask the managers, they go, yeah, about 6 hours or something like that. A couple hours for meetings. But if you actually ask the makers will tell you it's about 2 point something on average, or 2.5, 2.6 usually. Okay. So, well, that's kind of scary. It should scare you. It turns out that even the best you can get it, because of the natural chaos, when we do our stuff, we'll see those numbers go up above 4.5 or something like that. Now that still feels kind of bad because you're paying for 8 hours, right? And you're probably trying to bill 6 or 7 of those. But if you're only getting 2.5 of real productivity, then your client is paying for a lot of non-productive time, or you're eating it, one of the two, right? So but again, a boost from 2.5 to 4.5 is actually a pretty good boost if you think about it. It's an 80% boost in productivity, right? So if you can actually unlock that stuff, and that's one of the examples of the benefit of unlocking the chaos that happens inside an agency and the over-managing that happens. Lastly, there's the challenge of empowerment. So what do all those managers do? They actually get, if I draw that square spaghetti diagram differently, they've been more accurate. A lot of them are getting between the client and the makers and the team. And the interesting thing in the research, and we see it in live action in our work, is the more distance between the team or team members and the client, the less productive the team is, the lower quality work, the lower engagement. And this is actually based on research that has nothing to do with agencies, just in general, the sort of distance index between the target of your work and you. And that's why like personas happen, right? It's to try and bring the client's customer into the room so people would work more effectively, but also more enthusiastically as well. With all those managers in the organization, most of those managers haven't had training, one, on how to just manage in the first place. They know rudimentary stuff and they copy each other. And if they ice you on this, all the managers, I thought it was great. The second thing is that managing in other organizations is a very different thing than managing in this multi organization, multi-project, multi-client, multi-manager environment. And most managers don't know how to behave properly there. And we start getting heroics and firefighter behaviors and dominance, et cetera. Pretty crazy stuff. All of this finally leads to essentially team members feeling like they're being whipsawed inside of this environment. Is that, hey, I'm shifting to this, to that, to that. They'll stop working on that, start working on this, that kind of thing. And it essentially drives down, again, sense of empowerment. The reason empowerment's a big deal, empower people as empowerment goes up, the feeling of empowerment goes up, productivity, quality, and engagement, happiness go up as well. That's our tagline, better, faster, happier. That's where it came from. It's called self-determination theory, a huge body of research. All right. How many of the no cofactors? What's your score? You probably in the 60s or 70s have been counting. You can rewind because this is a video. I don't usually get to rewind when I'm doing a live thing. And that's where these numbers come from, that we can make the organization better. Now, do the last couple slides here. One thing is size does affect these things. And so getting smaller, I'm going to show you another slide that shows this dramatically. But one of the things we do, and we teach is how to make pods. And pods are actually pretty big, like 35 people, right? This doesn't show that. But the idea is that I cut down on the multiplicative, the geometrically multiplicative amount of managerial interactions and other connections and fragmentation that can happen. So smaller team, smaller groups actually have geometrically less fragmentation. I take, if the one on the right is half the size of the one on the left, then the one on the right has a quarter of the chaos and interrupted noise, right? And vice versa. Going from the left to right, the one on the left has 4 times the chaos because it's only twice as big. So there's a effect. I'll show it to you on this next slide sequence. I'm going to take you through through size factors and the like. And you recognize some of these things. So if a small agency, 5-person agency, it's a great place to work. All that stuff happens well, understanding alignment, coordination, flow, etc. All of it works really well, and a really solid productivity factor. The only bad thing about a small agency like that is either you've got no clients, which is horrible, or just it's a Goldilocks situation, or just the right number of clients, or too many clients, right? You don't have a lot of ability to flex because you don't have a lot of people, and you don't have a lot of depth in different skill sets. The sweet spot for agencies tends to be in the 15 to 25 person range. And this is when you're starting to get some depth in your bench. Remember, you don't have that many managers yet either. And a lot of things are really easy to happen easily, like understanding and getting teams aligned, because there aren't a lot of people to align and they're not distracted. Your client count's probably pretty low. You're probably at 5 or 8 clients at this point. This is the moment when the client count starts ballooning because the agency is reaching for clients to help continue staff growth as well. But people can still get work done. Productive flow is still doable, and everyone feels pretty empowered. Its productivity factor is probably a little higher. I need to fix this slide. My nose is tickling me, so I'm doing it. Sorry. You hit 50 though, and all hell breaks loose. At this point, a bunch of things happening. We get balkanization inside the organization. We're past this natural human group size. And the group of people who know, who understand, is a separate group from the people who are doing it. And so we get this in-group, out-group thing. And a couple other things happen. So alignment is harder to happen because usually we've introduced owned resources or departments. As you see in the next bullet, departments are used to coordinate, but the problem is departments create structures and silos and decreased collaboration and alignment across teams and the like. And by this point at 50, we got 10 managers, 15 managers, something like that. And we're starting to see a lot of decreased productive time. And this is where the numbers start dropping. You probably had 4 or 5 hours at the 25-person organization, 5 hours a day of productive, maybe more. 50-person, you start seeing it tail down. It's probably 3 or 4 hours. And of course, it goes to hell when you get over here on the right-hand side. Everything just gets worse under stress. Here's sort of we call it a hockey stick of misery. I'm going to show you a real quick slide on our program, but I'm not going to spend any time on it. We do have a multi-step program. We do custom purpose-built programs as well. But our program starts with your leadership in the organization and gets them aligned on ideas like the ones you just saw here. So a better understanding of how the organization works. And then effectively we deal with, the reason we use those terms is we deal with understanding. We show you how to do briefings and scopings and handoffs and coordination of the client better. And then we show you, if you need to deal with size, you do it as well. And then we show you how to daily coordinate, make coordination flow happen, day structure, how to create quiet time, which is not it's not the way you think you do it. We have a range of other programs like managerial trainings, because that's very important. Train the trainer, and even sort of a graduate level program. If you've assimilated the first 2 levels, you can take your organization to level 3, where you really start tuning it and being great at it. Of course, sustaining the program as well. So, how great could your agency be? A lot better. If any of those, depending on how much of what I told you is true. If you haven't given us a call already, please do. Thanks. I'm Jack Skeels, CEO of AgencyAgile. Oh, I want to mention, if you thought this was interesting, tell people about it, first of all, but you can go to our website and you find a couple other cool, a bunch of other cool on-demand webinars. There's an actually on-demand webinar page now, but among them are the $1 Million Murder of Agency Margins, which is one of our newest ones at the time of this video. This is the one that has the stuff that I just went through plus more. And this is one of our classics, how for scoping and handoffs create fuel agency program. So anyways, thank you for watching, and maybe I could see you soon somewhere in one of our trainings. Take care.